Hello, and welcome back to True Talk Healed Hearts. My name is Carmen, and I discuss everything healing, growing, and self awareness. So, if you find that you are on a journey to becoming the best version of yourself, or looking for ways to just be poured into, looking for ways to process, you are in the right place. And so, I hope today you feel poured into. I hope that this speaks to your heart if needed. But today we'll be talking about self healing, which is definitely not easy, definitely takes time. I don't think a lot of people really process how long self healing can take, but it's very much so necessary. And I typically find the best way to go through self healing is through isolation. I feel that when God takes you through a season of isolation, you get the opportunity to process not only, just with yourself, but with God and seeing what His will is and how He wants to proceed and order your steps for your life. And typically, I would say for me, for so many years, I had a difficult time with processing my emotions because life was always so busy and I was always kind of like in survival mode that I didn't even realize there were some things in my life that I had looked over or just looked past in general to where I thought I was healed and I really wasn't. And so that's one of the things that can be a barrier when it comes to self-healing is pretending that everything is okay, pretending that you're fine. And people will even ask, especially if you're a person who's typically joyful or a smiley person, people will kind of get confused, like, you never had a bad day? No, I have bad days, I just learned how to push through and get over it. I don't really like to soak and feel. But after a while, you learn that's not really beneficial. Not to you, not to your heart, not to your emotions. Honestly, it's not beneficial to you physically either because you don't realize the walls that you have up. You are truly holding in things that you really need to let go of, and it's affecting your body the longer that you keep holding on to it. And so, pretending like everything is okay is not the best way to heal. Like I said, going through a season of isolation is definitely the best way to heal because there are no distractions. There is, really no one to bounce ideas off of. It's just you and sitting in it and feeling it. And like I said, it's very difficult, but well worth it. And for me, when it came to learning how to heal, I was very grateful for moving back home because moving back home gave me the opportunity to sit with a lot of things that I had not processed from even childhood and past relationships, friendships. There were a lot of things that I didn't even realize were eating me up. And because I'm always, like I said, this person who's very strong and typically come off very bubbly and very happy, I had to realize this is a great opportunity for me to slow down and really start working on myself. And so, yes, with moving back home, that allowed me to get into a space, or I would say that allowed God to put me in a space of isolation. And it was literally for like a year and a half. And what I mean by isolation is not necessarily not talking to friends or family members, but majority of the time being to myself when most of the time, you're hanging out with other people. So that's what I mean by the season of isolation. Or at the time everyone was, moved away and, not around for me to be distracted. So, um, what I had to realize in order to start healing myself was noticing my triggers, noticing certain patterns that I had, and even exploring some fears that I had. and trying to understand how to overcome it all, and trying to understand how to not always allow my past experiences control my emotions, because typically when you've gone through something, you kind of always have this wall up of it's going to happen again. And I will say this: the longer you take to pass the test to get over something, it will keep happening again. The longer that you take to process and learn from certain experiences, it will happen again. You just don't know how soon or how late it'll happen. And you'll find that even when things are going good in your life, certain things resurface and you're like, "Oh my goodness, I thought I was over that." And the reality of it is, no, you never sat with it. You never really felt it in order to dispose of it and in order to set up boundaries to not let it happen again. And that's another thing that's very important when it comes to self-healing is once you start to process um, past experiences, past emotions, once you sit with it, feel through it, you start to put these boundaries into place to where, okay, I'm not going to let that happen again. And if it does happen, that's, a situation does happen that's out of your control, I'm not going to let it pull me out of my character. I'm not going to allow this certain situation to make me self sabotage myself and make me feel undeserving of, you know, something new that I have in my life. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to sit on the sidelines in fear waiting to see when something else is going to go wrong because that's a thing too. When you get so kind of over life just lifing and things going through a season of where it just seems like when it rains it pours, bad things just keep happening and happening and happening, that when things do start to get good and when things do turn around, you actually almost just start to get in your own way because that pain of just going through a hard season or hard experience, it's almost like it's hard to let it go. And I will tell you, let it go, because hard times don't last forever. And you do get to a point where you can experience the good things in life. And so, getting to a point where you can be in isolation in order to sit with emotions or overcome certain experiences is essential to getting to that good place and being able to enjoy it, because you don't want to get to a good spot in life and still be like almost on lookout or almost on watch because you just think it's going to be taken away from you again, or you know what I mean, or a certain issue is going to pop up again. Like I said, if you, as long as you sit with it, process it, feel it, that is when you heal from it. The unfortunate part about self-healing though is you don't know how long it's going to take. And I don't know, and I might have to insert a clip here, but I don't know if you've seen the video where there's like a glass of something like red in a cup or something black in the cup, and someone literally pours water into it or runs the faucet and just continues to fill up that cup. And what you see is, as the water's going into the dark cup, you're seeing that it takes a really long time for that water to become clear again. And so some things I feel like we can get over quickly, and then there's other things that, I'm sorry, it may take years to get through. And what I mean by that is you may think you're over it, and then it resurfaces, and then how you respond to it is wrong, which means you're not over it. When you can respond to something in a new way, and more so of a positive and mature way, you're over it. You're healed from it. But if you find that a certain thing keeps coming up and it makes you act out of a character, I'm sorry, but you're not over it. And you still need to do some work on whatever that thing may be. And so, a part of this is also processing your emotions. I talked about this on the last pod of like controlling your emotions, but a part of doing both of those things, self-healing, controlling your emotions, is processing your emotions. And a lot of people really don't know how to do this either, and I'll repeat it if you haven't watched the last episode, but processing your emotions is not suppressing. It's not, you need to be strong. It's you being vulnerable enough to say, I feel sad, or I feel mad, I feel angry, whatever the case may be. And I'm going to sit in this feeling until it passes. That's processing an emotion. So to do this, you got to figure out what a good outlet is for you to process. For me, crying. I have to cry. If I just lock myself in a room and cry something out, feel it long enough to where I just cry, 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 and then afterwards I get up and I'm like, I'm okay now. I processed it. And then guess what? I put a boundary up. How do I protect myself? Not a wall, but a boundary. How do I protect myself from not being triggered this way again? And not, it's not always easy to do that. And it's not always easy to figure it out right away. But processing your emotions is understanding your triggers. Because in order to understand your triggers, then it's like a domino effect of understanding your patterns of why you react the way that you do. And so figuring out an outlet on how to process your emotions is very essential to self-healing. And so, like I said, allow yourself to feel. When you finally process it, you get to dispose of it. So, meaning it's no longer hindering you. It's no longer hindering how you respond. It's no longer hindering your outlook on life. You've processed it, you've dealt with it, it's gone. And it's no longer affecting your body physically, because bad emotions does affect your body, whether you know it or not. If you're always like having back pain, if you're always having headaches, if you're feeling pain somewhere constantly, you have to get to the root of what is causing it, because it may not even be something physical that you're doing that's causing it. It can really be an emotion that is making you feel this pain consistently, so, or constantly. So that is, I feel like, step one of like self-healing. And then another question to ask yourself, after asking yourself, why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling? What caused me to feel it, this way? And how do I overcome it? Another thing is asking yourself, like, what didn't I receive? Like, if this is something that's old and maybe like childhood trauma, and you're carrying baggage, into adulthood, um a good question to ask yourself is, what didn't I receive in this moment as a child that I needed? What didn't I receive in this moment of the trauma that I experienced? And asking yourself also, like, what did I what did I need, and now what do I currently need in order to overcome this? Now, I will say, with certain experiences, sometimes it starts by forgiving yourself and forgiving the other person, typically. Now, I understand that there are certain things that we may go through where, unfortunately, we don't always get closure. Even though we may need it, we may not always get the closure that we want. Now, if you decide that you want to go seeking for certain closures, I understand that, but I will say start by forgiving either yourself or forgiving the other person when it comes to certain traumatic experiences. Now, branching off into asking yourself, like I said, what didn't I receive and what did I need? Sit with those two questions. How you proceed with how you answer those two questions, it's up to you to get what you need from that point. Sometimes I do believe the easiest way to, to overcome something is, you know what, this happened. I forgive this person. I forgive myself for having, self pity. If you need that closure, like I said, you can try to obtain it. But sometimes, and this goes back to faith, I think you don't always get the closure that you need, unfortunately. And so I believe the next step would be give it to God. If you ask yourself the question, what didn't I receive? What did I need in with this experience that I had? Answer those questions. And if it is possible to get the closure that you need, by all means, get the closure that you need. But if it is so far gone for you to reopen a certain door, sometimes you just got to put it in God's hands and say, Lord, heal me, free me of this. And that's the hardest part about healing sometimes, is like really giving it to God and saying, you know what? I'm tired of carrying this weight. I am tired of dragging this baggage. I am tired of this thing showing up in my life constantly. I am tired of feeling like it controls me. Give it to God. Put it in his hands. Because some things, that's the only way to get closure. And I shouldn't say unfortunately. Actually, some things, and sometimes that's the only way to get closure, is to place it in his hands and truly trust that he will free you from it. And that's hard because as humans, we like to see things change and transform immediately. But sometimes you may not see it until months later. Like, oh my goodness, God, free me from this thing. I'm no longer carrying it. And like I said, it takes time, but it's worth it. Another thing that's important with self healing is taking accountability. Sometimes not everything that has happened to you is because of someone else. Sometimes you cause your own hurt, especially when you don't learn from your mistakes and you keep putting yourself in the same situations. When are you going to get it? How many times do you have to hit your head? Why do you keep going back to it? Leave it. Let it be. Taking accountability can be definitely the hardest part and the most toughest area to look yourself in the mirror in. And sometimes it hurts because you realize you caused something that, didn't have to end a certain way, or you caused something that possibly could have had a better outcome if you just would have, reacted, or, I mean, responded differently, or, you know, didn't have so much pride, or didn't have to be right all the time. So, yeah, taking accountability is extremely important to self healing and overcoming. But I will say it's important to nurture yourself. Through this process, it's definitely easy to be hard on yourself. It's easy to ask yourself, like, how could I have change the situation? How could I have, you know, provided myself with a better outcome? And sometimes it is those, things are out of your control. But through the journey of healing, be graceful with yourself, be patient with yourself, take your time, but start exploring like who you are. You know what I mean? Like start exploring, you know, what you like to do in the season of self healing. What's something that you have not done that you've always wanted to do? Do you have any hobbies? Do you maybe need to grow a little deeper in your faith? Like, who do you want to be when you come out of the on the other side after you've healed? What kind of woman do you want to be? You want to be a woman with better habits, whether that be exercise habits, eating habits, sleeping habits. You want to be a woman with better boundaries, a woman who doesn't tolerate nonsense, a woman who has self worth, a woman who doesn't feel sorry for herself, a woman who walks in confidence, right? So, through this process of self healing, becoming a better you, take it easy on yourself. Journal, track the process. Track the process so that, a year from now, you can look back and say, oh my goodness, I remember when I was going through that. I remember when it was so hard for me to overcome this certain season of my life. And like I said, like on your strongest days, some things can like resurface, but it's all about how you respond to certain things that, kind of resurface. If you need to revisit again, revisit, dive a little deeper into why you're feeling the way that you're feeling. But just don't overlook it. Just don't say, I choose not to feel. I feel like that's how we get to like the deeper root of who we are, is going through, unfortunately, like seasons of brokenness. And it doesn't necessarily have to be brokenness from a relationship, but it can be brokenness from a death, it can be brokenness from a job, it can be brokenness from a friendship. Sometimes that's an opportunity to dive a little deeper within ourselves and ask ourselves, who am I? What's next? How can I be a better version of me? So, a little bit about my season of like self healing and isolation. Um, Going to the gym was like my therapy, and listening to worship music and really just asking God questions, like writing out my questions. And if He didn't get back to me that day, like coming back a few days later and seeing, like, okay, what did I ask God? And seeing if He answered my questions. And like I said, it can take God some time to get back to us, but He does eventually. I think the most important thing with self healing is ensuring that you don't revert back to old ways and old habits, even on the hard days. Because it's easy for somebody to trigger us or something to trigger us to where we're like, I'm tired of trying. I'm just going to continue to be this person, that person that I used to be. And it's like, no, don't revert back. Keep trucking forward. It's okay. It's okay to, I know people say, like, people take my kindness for weakness. You're not weak when you are silent. You're not weak when you choose to be the bigger person. You're weak when you allow someone to bring you out of character or something to bring you out of character. That is being weak because you allowed somebody to dictate your response to something. So don't do that. Don't revert back to old ways, old habits just because it gets hard, just because some things resurface. Or, when you're faced with the thing that you've gone through again, because we typically are faced with it again, like I said, how you respond is the most important part. That's how you know you're over it. So, I hope you enjoyed today's discussion about self healing. Like I said, it's not easy, it's a journey, but the trend has been it's a journey that's worth it. So, keep trucking along, keep moving forward, and there is a better version of you waiting on the other side. Until next time.